Dallas, Texas. City of hate. Dallas Cowboys. Who shot JR? Still. Wealthy, white, conservative, cowboy hats, and southern twangs. Lots of money, but not a lot of intelligence, maybe? But I live here, and I've lived here a long time. Dallas is eclectic. Hides its coolest shit in the margins. I'm just gonna show you. My name is Betsy Lewis. I am a cultural carnivore. Welcome to my Dallas.
The digger and his daughter. We haven't seen each other in 3 years, but when Baba and his luggage come billowing out the opaque arrival door at DFW International, the first thing he wants to know is if he can immediately pay homage at the JFK Memorial and South Fork Ranch. This is his first ever visit to the United States. The year is 2002. I've been divorced, abandoned, and have literally been dragging my life behind me with a lot of help from ramen noodles since the last time he bid me farewell at Quaid-e-Azam International Airport. Despite this momentous reunion, 50% of my father's initial interest at arriving in Dallas is attached to a fictional character who didn't even have the good manners to die properly. I should be a bit miffed. But instead I laugh. I mean, some of my family back home still believe that cowboys a la John Wayne roam the streets of Dallas and W is the best human being ever, because obviously the scholarship monies I receive at UT Dallas must be his generosity and not Margaret McDermott's. He's like the mayor of Texas land, right? Right. I ask Baba if we can at least swing by my dingy apartment at Waterview Parkway for a cup of tea first, but he's mortified at the thought. You see, he made his assistant look up a map of Dallas along with traffic patterns, and based on this information, going all the way up to Richardson would be murder when we could just swing south a bit. The bozos Baba is hiring to spawn inaccurate research are going to make me a murderer, but I respect my father's utter desire to dig deep into whatever topic life presents him. So I bundle him up in a thick coat as we step outside in the unusually foggy December, our heads tilted away from the freezing wind, my heart contently warm in my chest because he's here. During the car ride, he tells me that a honky-tonk bar is third on his list while visiting a prairie land fourth. And all I can do is marvel at my information digging, non-alcohol drinking father's obsession with swimming deeply into the character and history of a place, even if it means visiting a bar against his Muslim belief system. I don't have a car. Still don't. And I have picked Baba up thanks to a Pakistani friend's kindness. Though I laced the request with, "We don't have to do this right now. My friend is 100% enthusiastically in. We are like this only," the friend chuckles, reminding me of the first time when a music video channel began airing 24/7 in Pakistan, modeled after MTV station calls in the 80s, astronaut planting an MTV flag, flag getting squished into the channel's logo. Our music station ads would show brief tableaus, one of which was of a punk rocker slamming back shots of chai and proceeding to smash his sitar against a wall, the debris morphing into the channel logo. Underneath the logo, it always said, "Channel XYZ, we are like this only." Very desi English lingo sentence construction where you don't have a headache, but rather your head is paining. Very desi, like substituting V's for W's and W's for V's. We take Baba where he wants to go without delay, even if it doesn't make sense, because we are like this only. Because respecting all wishes of our elders post-haste is knitted into our DNA. We can rock all we want, but chai is where the paratha roll is. Soon, Baba and I are meandering about the heart of downtown Dallas, while my friend goes excavating for a parking spot. I point out the West End Dart Station where I get stranded all the time, and I present the red courthouse as if I own it. Juicy thunder clouds heap above us in the steely sky, listening closely to my walking tour commentary, cracking slim slavers of lightning to punctuate my gestures. Baba sighs at the Commerce Main Elm underpass, causing his Pakistani breath to exhale in swirls of Dallas vapor. He looks up at Dealey Plaza, his brow quilted angrily, as if the poor building was responsible for all that was terrible in the world. He gets down on his 70-year-old knees where X marks the spot. It begins to drizzle. Baba doesn't notice. Instead, he tells me that we should go touch the book depository wall. I need to read more about this building. It's architecture, he says as we walk on over. This building probably had no idea what its future held. Just imagine. My heart thumps with an unbidden prophecy regarding the future, and it breaks. In this moment, I am all-knowing. However, this heartache comes with joy too. Suddenly, I'm thankful that I have the crazy parent respecting DNA, even if it has meant arranged marriage. Suddenly, I've fallen in love with a city that I have previously only thought of as a passing rest stop. Dallas has given Baba a history to plumb, to dig in. And for this kindness, it has just earned me as an eternal citizen. I watch Baba and me detached from my body. I watch the digger and his daughter standing in the misting rain, their right hands planted firmly upon the swiftly darkening brick and mortar.
Yeah, I don't really like talking about art. Like, who am I? I'd rather talk about life, There's more important things to talk about. For me, art is just therapeutic. When I went to jail when I was younger, like years and years ago, because I knew I was better than, doing stupid stuff, I was like, this is ridiculous, I'm sitting here wasting time in here. Even if it was for a few days, I was like, wow, I'll never get these days back. When I got my first studio in Deep Ellum at the Continental Gin Company when I was on the third floor for about 3 or 4 years, it was the first time I broke away from my childhood, traumatic, all that stuff, and had my own place. And I left Irving and I got into Dallas and had my own studio. And although I was doing construction work, doing tile work, it was it was like my first place I had. It was not zoned to live, but I was living in my studio for the first time. My first studio, my first solo place to live. And I was so happy because I was making better money doing tile work, and there was nobody screaming all the violence, from, my family and upbringing and all that. And I was making more money, so I was able to buy food. I discovered Whole Foods for the first time. I discovered hummus for the first time. I discovered a lot of really good foods, and I could just work, and I had enough money to buy all the art materials I wanted. I even bought a cheap pawn shop saxophone because I played saxophone. in elementary, in a junior high, and before I dropped out of high school, and I was really good at that, so I got to play my saxophone in there, paint when I got off work, drink wine, and eat good food, and listen to good music, and I was totally, extremely, happy.
On a late night in 1979, after last call, a young gay man found himself cruising the underground hookup scene of Dallas, Texas. A seedy world as seductive as it was dangerous.
It feels lawless again.
And he found exactly what he was looking for.
So when we thought about the podcast, we said, well, how would we structure it? We've got this story of the incident, and really the story of the whole thing is like the learning to cope with your trauma. And so we kind of said, well, if we broaden this back out, we wouldn't put in this 4 hours of material that we cut out. We would go a different direction. So that really opened it up to kind of what we're talking about, putting the incident in a historical context, both through the gay, the burgeoning gay identity in the country, to Dallas's place in that whole thing, how hate crimes as a whole were dealt with over the decades. And, because I think that's what's really unique about this show is, yes, it's a true crime, but hate crimes are never really talked about, and LGBTQ is really never in that space either. And sadly, those are the most, common true crimes that people deal with, and no one's reporting it. And Terry's just happened to be a very extreme version of that.
I think there's a lot of shame about having lived in the sexual underground. And I was sick of that. I thought, we're adults. I'm writing this for adults. And I think if you're an adult, the good thing about being adult as opposed to a child is you can talk about anything that has ever been discussed because you're an adult. And so I really wanted to write this as it happened. I didn't want to soften anything. I wanted to present that world because it's the story's roots are in that world. He keeps walking until he backs me up to the rear wall of the booth, then reaches behind his back and slowly shuts the door. And then there's a knife at my throat.
To me, it's fascinating that people get stuck on the sexual thing, but you can talk about decapitation all day long and it's not a big deal. But you spend 30 seconds talking about a sex act, and all of a sudden be like, oh, goodness gracious.
CCP Media presents The Incident, a multi-episode podcast based on the critically acclaimed one-man show by Terry Vandevort.
Once there was a boy, and something terrible happened to him.